in the 16th seminar of the DS events calendar. Today, the speaker is Dr. Muzammal Anjum, assistant professor in the Department of Environmental Sciences. He earned his PhD from KS Saudi Arabia, and he is working in our university since 1 year. Today, the topic of his talk is the emerging nanomaterials for water purification, a perception of lab to products chain. This is a very interesting topic. I am thankful Dr. Muzammal to sparing his time. Now it is time, we are already a little late. I will request the speaker to start his talk. It will go about 30 to 40 minutes. Then we have 5 questions. If any participant have any question, can please share even in the chat room. We have also recording, and that will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. The student can review it later on as well. Now it is hand over to Dr. Muzammal. Please start your talk.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Azam. Of course, that's a wonderful day for me. So before starting my talk about the emerging nanomaterials for the water purification, I want to share a stanza that is from the ancient miner. I think there is some issue in the slideshow. Just let me fix it. Okay. So water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. This is so true even in the today's world, because this, I think, stanza is about 200 years old. And when the Samuel Taylor, he's the writer of that stanza, he writes a story about the ancient miner who traveled a long sea voyage, and when he returned, he talked about his long journey, about the hurdles, about the thirst he feel during his journey. So that is about the ocean. This stanza is so true about the ocean, that is, there is no water available for the drink. But if we observe the current scenario, the present world, on the land where we have ample of fresh water available, so still we don't have a drop of water to drink. As we know that this earth is full of water, and there is about, I think, 70% of the earth is covered with the water, and out of which just 25% water is available as a fresh resource. And this water is not always available for the human use. Only 1% is available. Why? Because the other is in the form of the ice caps in the Great Antarctica and the Greenland, and this cannot be used for the normal our normal utilization. So even this small water is not sufficient for the 8 billion people of the earth. Why? Because it is already polluted due to our human and anthropogenic activity. We know that already we have observed, we have ample of fresh water resources on the earth. If we just observe a lot of rivers, streams, they are full of waters, but we cannot utilize. Why? Because due to the development of technology, due to the modern technology aspects, and the development of industrial sectors, the population increase, we are more dependent upon on the industry, on the technology. And due to use of this technology, we are polluting more, we are creating more pollution in the water. And ultimately, all of the water is now converting into the wastewater. So this is a widespread problem. Actually, this is geoparadising our health. And according to an estimate, this unsafe water kills more people each year than a war or any other violence does. So it's mean, if we just count the total casualties in a war, it will be less as compared to the deaths caused due to the water pollution. So the reason of the water resource depletions may be associated with the increasing population, of course, and our dependency on the technology. And due to this technology, we are the victims of the climate change due to the prolonged drought and the floods. We don't have a proper storage of that water. Especially this is very true in the case of the Pakistan, that we have no proper sources to store this wasting of the water. And due to the industries, the contamination of the water causing a huge toxicity due to the organic pollutants and the other heavy metals included. And just if you see this figure, there are a lot of case studies we can find in the articles that this water pollution is causing a lot of casualties, a lot of deformalities. Even it is very old study, 1956. It's mean the problem of the water pollution is not a new. It is started, I think, from still from 60 to 70 years before. And some their recent studies also shows that there's a problem associated with the pesticides in the water. The microbial contaminants, of course, cause huge negative impacts. So if we observe that the modern technology is affecting our life, affecting the quality of water, why the research is still going on? Why we are developing more technologies? The answer is that we need uh, more stable methods to cope this, to solve these problems. And of course, the day by day change in the water composition is also a source, is also a cause that we are doing more research to develop more effective methods that are more reliable and the methods which can be applicable in the field and the industry. So once at one place we have a technology, and at the other place, if we do more research, then we are going towards the modern technology. And in my perception, I think the modern technology is that is environmentally sustainable. And for that, we need to perform more research, more feasibility tests, so that it can be applicable with a lesser environmental impacts. So for that, we need to perform more field trials, so that a complete package, a complete technology can be produced. Of course, for that, to establish a new technologies or a modern technologies, we need innovation or some great ideas, some creativity. And in that case, I think the nanotechnology in the present scenario plays a very important role. And nanotechnology is actually the science and engineering and technology conducted at the nanoscale, in which we prepare some nanomaterials and we apply for particular application. And in our case, we are talk about more the application of the nanomaterial for the water purification. So if we talk about the application of the nanomaterial in the wastewater treatment, there are different classes of the nanomaterial that can be used, like nanocatalyst. We can use the catalyst for oxidation of the pollutants, and we can prepare the nanomembranes for the filtration of the ultra small molecules or oxidation of the some microbial pollutants as well. And nanoadsorbents, adsorbent also used for the absorption of the pollutants. So all these can combinedly can be used in the can be integrated in the wastewater treatment. So in the present scenario, current water treatment and the distribution technologies concepts are mostly insufficient. And if we talk about the more scientific background, for example, the chlorination process produces more disinfectant byproducts, which are also toxic, because if you are dealing with a microbial pollutants through the chlorination process, we are producing secondary pollutants, and these are called DBPs, disinfectant byproducts. Similarly, during transportation, there may be the chance for the contamination of water, and the other technologies like reverse osmosis, which is still in use in the both in industry, and it is also very established and commercialized technology, reverse osmosis. It has a very high operational cost because we need to change the filters, we need to change the membranes after a regular interval of time. And sometimes we feel low absorption capabilities of the material. And there are some technologies in which we use the activated carbon and activated carbon cannot be recycled. It only used once. So all these aspects actually increase the cost of the process. So problem associated with the so let's talk about the biological treatment. So this is just a general discussion about that how the water is polluted. Now we have different technologies in the industry, and among those technologies, the biological ones are highly applied, in which includes the activated sludge process, aerobic digestion, anaerobic digestion, and there are certain treatments now, not in the Pakistan, but the other they are treating their water using the algae and fungi. So there are a lot of biological treatments which are established and applied in the industry, but still they have there are different issues, there are different barriers associated with these biological treatments. Number one is, of course, they are associated with the microbes and the bacteria. So due to the production of large flocks, these technologies produce huge amount of sludge, and it is very not easy to deal with this kind of sludge. And these technologies have a long retention time, because biological process always have a long retention time. And sometimes the water comes from different industries. They may contain certain complex compounds and which cannot be degraded from the existing microbes. So there is need for additional specific microbes that has a potential to deal with the target pollutant. So we need to improve this technology. And if I talk about the nanotechnology, the best thing about the nano material is that it can be integrated with the existing wastewater treatment processes. There is no need to just to replace the complete treatment process with the nanomaterial processes. We can integrate in the existing system, and we can improve the existing system, including the biological treatment process, and we can lower the operational cost, because in nanomaterial we can prepare the catalyst, and catalyst can be recovered and can be reused many times as compared to the other materials that and the other chemicals that are utilized in the wastewater treatment plant. So keeping in view all this discussion, let me share a very few studies, our contribution, that what we have performed and we have achieved from our research. So during last 5 to or 6 years, we were successfully prepared various type of nanomaterials, in which include the zinc oxide, zinc sulfide at polyaniline, then zinc oxide, zinc sulfides, Ag2O, Ag2S, chromium oxide, C3 and 4, copper oxide, and graphene oxide. So and so on. There are many. I think these are more than almost 7 developed catalysts that we have prepared up till now, and these are very efficient. And we apply these catalysts in for different purpose, like we have dealt with industrial dairy wastewater, industrial waste sludge treatment. We deal with this using these nanomaterials, and we have also tried the water disinfection using these microbes, toxic pollutants removal, and also we have tried the energy recovery from the waste using these nanomaterials. So there is one study that we have performed regarding the dairy wastewater, where we have prepared different types of nanomaterials. Just I give you a very few examples. These are the same images which shows a successful synthesis of our composite material with a very beautiful structures in the form of sheets and in the form of some clusters, and we can observe the different colors. So this shows the successful preparation, successful synthesis and integration of these composites and different nanomaterials in a single compound. So we used a loose camp LCZ4 photochemical reactor for our experimentation, and we observed that. So this is data about the different studies. I have just shown here an overview. For example, when we use a copper oxide, graphene oxide, titanium oxide composite material for the solubilization of dairy wastewater, we observed that for the dairy water with a high concentration of sodium shows extraordinary results. This shows extraordinary solubilization potential. and we I think almost 30 to 40% the COD was solubilized. Why we are solubilizing the organic matter present in the dairy water? Because in the dairy wastewater there are a lot of organic component is present, which includes fats, proteins, and they are very complex. They are not easily degradable during the biological process. So if we use these nanomaterials for solubilization of these complex molecules, then these solubilized organic matter can be available for the subsequent biological degradation process. So by integrating these nanomaterial photocatalyst process with the existing biological process, we can achieve much better results as compared to the existing technology. Similarly, the other material we have tried like nickel hydroxide, graphene oxide, titanium oxide, we also achieve the excellent solubilization rate. So after the performing the photocatalytic solubilization, we have also tried the aerobic treatment of all these treated wastewater samples, and we observed that in the copper oxide, graphene oxide, titanium oxide catalyst, when this was treated with the biological aerobic treatment, it shows a maximum degradation. Almost at the end, we get less than 100 mg per liter of total COD, and this is a very permissible limit for the environmental release of the wastewater. Similarly, in the other case, we have also observed less than 150 total COD after the treatment or under the aerobic conditions. So this was the reactor, and this was a very sophisticated reactor, and it has a high precision and has a, so after we did initially a lot of trials to optimize the condition, and after optimizing the whole condition, we set all these reactor configuration for our experiments at the last. So at the end, we use this configuration in our aerobic reactor, and the reactor name is BioFlow 115 bioreactor, and this is, I think, commercially available, and this is mainly for the laboratory experiments. And in this reactor, we can control almost all the external and internal factors. So at the end, we observed that there was about 94% of the total COD removal was observed. And in that case, we use a sulfur doped graphene oxide zinc catalyst. So this is about the dairy wastewater. I want to share another study which is about the removal of the microbial pollutants. So we tried our nanomaterials for disinfection process in the water. So we did we measured the zone of inhibition over the petri plates, and we observed that where we applied the catalyst in certain quantity, measured quantity, there is a circle. You see, can you observe this circle? This is the zone of inhibition. At this, in this circle, there is no growth of the microbes due to this presence of this nanomaterial. So this means that these nanomaterials has a very good antimicrobial activity, and they can be used to remove the pathogens from the wastewater. So at the end, we analyze the overall and compare the overall water quality parameter with the standard values. This dotted line shows the standard limits for all these parameters: COD, TS, total organic carbon, nitrogen, BOD, and etc. and all these. So overall, we observed that this orange bar is actually the that one that we actually treated with the nanomaterial and then subsequently processed with the aerobic digestion. This shows that all these orange bars are under the limits, the permissible limits for the water release into the environment. So another study, this is about the dairy wastewater and the antimicrobial activity. And we have tried to recover the material. So we reuse our material, and we have tried that how much the reusability of our material, so that this material can be reused again and again. And and for example, in case of chromium oxide, Cr2O3, C3 and 4 nanomaterial, it shows 94% of degradation in the first run, and at the last run is there is about just, I think, 10 to 15% reduction in the potential, and this slight reduction is just because of maybe the improper washing, and some activated size may be already attached with the pollutant. So if this material is recovered with a more better methods, and if we try to make the washing with the acetone and the ethanol, we can recover this catalyst and can use, I think, more than 10 to 15 times. So in our other studies, we have also tried our material to reuse for the multiple times, and we observe excellent results for in all cases. So actually, how it works, how the catalytic solubilization due to the nanomaterial works in the wastewater treatment. This is a very brief, a very general mechanism. For example, this is our photo reactor, in which we use the solar light, and solar light is very good for the photocatalysis, because if we use artificial light, it increase the cost of the process. So we have tried to synthesize those materials which are active in solar light, because in previous research, if we observe various literature, we found that most of the research are conducted on the UV light, and UV light is only be possible through the artificial means. And of course, if we use some artificial means to produce the light for activation of the catalyst, it increase the cost of the process. So, the use of the solar light for activation also is one of the important factor that also increase the feasibility of that process for the industrial application. So when the light strikes on the catalyst, so this is the catalyst molecule. It has electron in the conduction band, and when the light strikes on the catalyst, the electrons excited to the valence bond from the conduction band and left the hole in the conduction band. So it created a charge, positive charge and negative charge, and these electron and these whole positive charge, when combined with the water molecule present in the water, they form a hydroxyl radical, OH radical, and these hydroxyl radical has high oxidation power. They can oxidize any kind of organic pollutant present in the water. When this hydroxyl radical combine with organic pollutants, these organic pollutants oxidize into the and completely mineralize into the carbon dioxide and water, and we will get a clean water at the end. So this is very simple and general mechanism of all process. So I want to share a very briefly another study that when this is, I think we have performed this study in the Saudi Arabia. We pre-treated the sludge, and we collected this sludge from the industrial area of the Jeddah, and this industrial area is actually associated with 550 industries. There are 550 industries. They have one centralized, very big treatment plant, and this treatment plant has a numerous, I think, types of the treatment systems, and mainly they are treating the water using the activated sludge process. This sludge that is producing in this industry, when we analyze in our laboratory, we found that it contains a lot of organic molecules, a lot of types, because 550 industries, they are all different kind of industry, food processing, plastic industry, and there are other kinds of industry, all are present at the one place. They are producing their own kinds of pollutants, so they're producing a very complex sludge. So to deal with this complex sludge is was not very easy task, but we successfully use this sludge and we perform the photocatalyst process. And this was just a picture. I'm showing you a flow chart that we use the photocatalytic reactor for the solubilization of sludge. That reactor was different from the reactor that we use for the dairy wastewater. So after the treatment of the sludge using the nanomaterial we synthesized, like zinc oxide, zinc sulfide, at polyaniline, we found extraordinary solubilization of the sludge. Or most of the organic component present in the sludge are solubilized, and they are easily available for the microbial degradation during the biological process. In the subsequent reaction, we perform the anaerobic digestion for this photocatalytic sludge, and we found that we measure the methane production from this reactor, and we found that compared to the raw sludge, the photocatalytic treated sludge produce more methane. And methane, you know, that is a very this is a renewable energy gas, and it can be used for energy purpose, for the production of electricity, and for the burning purpose as well. So in this way, we can recover the energy from the waste as well, using the anaerobic digestion process. So now we are moving to the last part of our presentation, which is regarding the perception of the nanomaterial from lab to the product. So for that, we know that we can synthesize, we can prepare the nanomaterial in the laboratory. It's not a big task. And we have a lot of other nanomaterials which are already synthesized and established and are very stable, and that can be applied for any treatment process. But the main problem is their feasibility to be used at a larger scale. So for that, to improve their feasibility, there is need an experimental success using the more field trials. Only that way we can improve their industrial feasibility. Another case, most of the literature is about just to use a single pollutant or just synthetic wastewater. Very rare research on the nanomaterial is about the real ground testing, real wastewater. But we were successfully use the real sludge, the real samples from the dairy industry as well. And also when we use the sludge from the wastewater treatment plant, after the experimentation, after the completion of the project, the treatment plant, the administration of the treatment plant called us, and they asked us to give the presentation that how they can integrate, how they can improve their process using the data we produced during our research. So in the water, there are numerous type of remediation techniques can be used, like photocatalysis, nanofiltration, dendrimers, multi-barrier system, and groundwater remediation. I'm going to give you just few examples that how these technologies using nanomaterial can be possible for treatment of the wastewater. For example, in the Rice University, there was a research conducted. They shown that the nanoparticles of the rust, which is made up of iron, can be used to remove arsenic from the wastewater. And arsenic, what arsenic did, arsenic sticks to the nano size rust, and it tends to be magnetic. And after that, we can remove this nanomaterial containing arsenic using some magnetic induction. So it's very easy and very reliable process to remove the arsenic, because arsenic is also a very important issue in the wastewater. Dendrimers is another technology in which dendrimers is actually a type of architecture in which polymers of the nanomaterials form a special structure. You can observe in this figure. There is a structure of the dendrimers in which there is a core, then there is an interior, and there is a terminal groups. So they all form just like a cage, and this cage is just can be used as a trap for the metal ions removal from the wastewater. So this is another type of technique that can be integrated in the existing wastewater system, in which if we talk about the filtration process, UV and filtration. UV used for the removal of the microbial pollutants, and the filtration is used to remove the organic pollutants. But if we integrate this technique with the nanomaterials, what the nanomaterial did, nanomaterial do the oxidation of these organic pollutants. And when these organic pollutants are oxidized, they can be converted into a less toxic form. And we know that this microfiltration cannot filter the microorganisms like bacteria and viruses. So these nanomaterials can in contact with these microbes, and they disinfect the whole media, and they remove all the bacteria and the even in some cases the virus as well. There is another type of application that is possible for using the nanomaterial. If we have a groundwater pollution based on the like metals, so we can inject the nanomaterials like iron nanomaterials can remove the different kind of pollutants from the water, and there are a lot of studies that has already performed and successful studies were performed. So we can use this iron nanomaterials and inject into the well, and after injection the area in the vicinity of the well is free from pollution, and there is no organic pollutants found after this experiment. So this means that this can be even used for the groundwater treatment of the groundwater pollution. But we know that the treatment of the groundwater is not an easy task, and I don't think so the groundwater treatment is in practice in anywhere. So there are some interesting examples. There are some commercial nanomaterial based products available in the market. For example, this is about the super hydrophilic filters. And these are the nanofilters which allow the filtering of water from contaminants such as arsenic and other heavy metals. And they called it a lifesaver bottle. And it has a hydrophilic filter inside that bottle that is fixed, and it can be used for the on-site filtration. And due to its nano size, it can filter even bacteria and viruses. So we can filter whole water. We can treat the water from all contaminants just using a single nanomaterial based filter. Similarly, there is another example, nanotechnology socks. So actually this is not related to the wastewater, but just as an example I have shown here, these socks are actually contains the silver nanomaterials impregnated in the fabric of that socks. So they help in killing the bacteria and produce so that there will be no smell produced from the socks or the foot, or there will be less chance of the infection. So what is need for the technology transfer? So we need to develop and adopt the innovations. So we need to improve the existing technologies, and we need to adopt the new processes. We have to reduce the barrier, for example, in the licensing processes, which is very important at certain levels. Moreover, we can make collaborations, joint development with industries, or commercialize the products at our own level so that we can transfer the technology to the end users. So at the end, I would like to conclude my presentation that as we observed as these all nanomaterial, nanotechnology, nanocatalysts have extraordinary potential for the environmental remediation. So it should be promoted for its testing in small scale, pilot scale plants or some commercial scale systems, or it should be tested in the field like in an industry, so that we can analyze their applicability for the large scale application. So nanoscience, engineering and technology holds great potential for the treatment of the wastewater and environmental protection. And the recent breakthrough gives further evidence and support the prediction that nanoscale science and engineering will most likely to produce a breakthrough for tomorrow. So what we need, the paradigm of the shift is we need to use these nanomaterial for the environment, which are already present in the environment. In the end, I cannot forget the whole team. This whole team is always involved in the research and all the development and all the achievement we have up till now achieved. And I would also like to organizer of this seminar, the Directorate of Advanced Studies at Agriculture University. So I would like to have the questions. Thank you very much for the listening.
If any participant have a question, please one by one. I think there is no question. Today the talk was very important, especially related to the environment issue and the daily use of life, daily water use, purification issue and contamination, how do we remove our clean water, use our clean water for our daily life. Dr. Muzammal, thank you very much for your sparing time. And I will request the other research coordinators, please encourage your students to participate in the seminar as we are doing for the support of students, for the learning of the students. Today, most of the students are from the environment sciences, other relevant departments, botany, engineering, and other relevant like soil science, and should also participate in such seminars. Thank you, Dr. Muzammal, for sparing your time. And now we are going to end our seminar today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.